So this afternoon, we are going to start off with Yield Enhancement Program, known better as YEN. Dr. Aaron Mills is going to present a nice little overview of the program, and he's a research scientist with AFC in Charlottetown, specializing in sustainable production systems in grains, pulses, oilseeds, and cover crops. He has a very passionate about barley and malt and beer, and we're glad to have him on our side. Come on up, Aaron.
Okay. All right, so thanks, Neil. I'm just going to go through some of the overview. Dennis, his presentation this morning, we had talked about, trying not to replicate what each other was saying. Basically, the yen actually started here in 2019, and I'm just going to go through some of the elements of what we've seen up until this year, talk about what happened this past year, and then we're going to get some of the guys up to talk about how they hit their yields. Okay, so first of all, I wanted to thank everybody who participated in the yen. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to do any of it without farmers letting us basically get into their knitting every year and collect data from their fields. Riley Chappell and Julia Larkin did the heavy lifting this year for PEI. Caitlin and Dave in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. And then Kirsten Gallant did all of the reports and she ran the models. Christian Gallant and Sylvia Wyand, they work with me. They're part of the team with sample processing and data handling. And then finally, Sherry Fillmore down in Kentville did a lot of the data analysis for us. Okay, so new for 2023, we have a new report format. So basically what we did, we burned down the entire program before. And actually, Aaron here was our first yen person, so he works for the province. Yeah, shout out to Aaron. We have a new model, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. We've done some economic calculations, so that comes up quite a bit. And we've done, essentially the cost of inputs. And Christian, do you want to put your hand up? Yeah, so that's Christian. So his hair almost looked like mine by the time he was finished getting the data for all the inputs. And then finally, we're going to launch. We did a little bit of a pilot in 2023, but we're launching full-on soybean yen in 2024. Okay, so this is the yen effect, and I just wanted to put this out there. Wheat Pete actually asked me for this slide, and you can see the increase. Oh, geez, it's almost backwards. Okay, so right here. This is very coarse data. This is Stats Canada data, right? So this is all winter wheat growers in PEI. This is right where the yen started. And this is the average winter wheat yield of the people participating in the yen. And this is the average winter wheat yield in PEI, okay? So I'm not saying that one is driving the other, but they certainly are related, okay? So we're certainly seeing yields increase in our winter wheat in the province. And, our statistician, Sherry Fillmore, she talks about, it's all about site years, baby. This is what we need. So we have 10 site years for soybean, 42 for oats, 62 for barley, and 100 and just over 100 for the two wheats. So we're just at a point now, like Dennis is really lucky, he gets like 200 entries a year. We're just starting to get there. We need at least 60, like we're starting to see some trends at 60. So this is one site per year, okay? You usually need about 30 of them before you can run stats on it. Okay, so we talked about the top 20 and the bottom 20 that Dennis was talking about earlier. I'm just gonna run through the crops that we do have a good chunk of data for. If we look at the top 20 here for barley, this is all of our participants to date. 2.4 tons to the acre is the average yield. The bottom 20 were right around 1.2 tons to the acre. Plant height, That comes out in every single analysis. The taller plants definitely yield more. Biomass, Dennis talked about how important it is. There's no doubt about it, like that biomass is driving the grain yields. And then with the barley, we're finding the average total nitrogen, we're just over 100 pounds per acre, okay? Yeah. Okay, so interesting thing, the ones with asterisks beside it, these don't come out in our analysis, and I just kind of put them out there just to show people the difference. There's not a huge difference between May 7th and May 18th for planting barley, not that we can see. Everybody says earlier is better. We're not really seeing that in our numbers. And we're not seeing a lot of diversity in the seeding rate, and that's just for barley. Okay, so for the spring wheat, basically it's all about the early nitrogen. Our average yields are 2.3, about 2.4 tons to the acre for the spring wheat. The bottom 20, we're at 1.2. And again, it's all about the early nitrogen. Biomass is a huge component of this. We see quite a bit more nitrogen total, and that is a driving factor with the spring wheat. Not really a massive effect of seeding rate, but again, that might be just that we don't have a big diversity, and also we're not seeing a big effect of seeding date. Okay, so earlier isn't necessarily better, but we're seeing that like better is best. Okay, so, and I'll talk about that with the model in a little bit. With the winter wheat, pretty big yields. Top 20 we're at about 3.6, and bottom we're at 1.73. And these are pretty much exactly what Dennis was reporting from Michigan. This is really interesting. This is where we are for our top 20. We're certainly at a lower seeding rate than we're seeing for our bottom 20. And you know, that plays into the tillering. Early planting, it's a no-brainer. Like really, the yield is directly related to planting date. And this one here, I have an asterisk beside it. We're not seeing a big response from total nitrogen, and I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. Okay, so we put this fact sheet out, and so the blue we have grain yield, and the orange is seeding rate, and these are the weeks after Labor Day. Okay, so basically you can see the longer we wait, we're losing that yield, and the seeding rate is really, it's not bringing that up at all, except at the end. At the end it's like, oh my God, I've got to plant, it's Halloween, I better get a yield, I better clean out the bin. So like we're seeing exactly the same things that Dennis was talking about in his data. Now this is what I was talking about, the relationship between or not seeing a total nitrogen response. So these are the years we have the, in the blue we have the yield through time, and the red we have the applied nitrogen. So really 2021, it was an awesome year where, you know, we're getting more than we're actually putting in on average. And then this past year, like we won't talk about 2023 too much, but you can see we're moving towards higher nitrogen and we're not really seeing that response, right? So there's a variability, and we're in around 140 pounds per acre to hit just over 2.5 tons per acre. It's kind of, that seems to be where things are settling out for us, just on average. Okay, so yen in 2023, we've seen the change. Initially, it was more spring wheat than winter wheat, but we're seeing more people making the jump into winter wheat. I think the yields are really starting to drive that. And we hand-selected 10 people for soybeans. So although we have soybeans, it was just more to find out what the yield components were so that we could ramp it up big time. Here's a look at the precip from 2023. This is only the cropland in the Maritimes, okay? So we're only showing where people are growing crops. And for the summer crops, these numbers went into the model. we were upwards of 700 millimeters, and for the winter crops, what are we at? Almost 1,000 millimeters. So I don't have to tell anybody that we had a wet year in 2023. And then this is what the actual recorded yields were. And so red is better than blue, and you can see where the hot zones were. And we're going to get some of these people to talk about what they did. Okay, here's the model. We have a new modeler. There's Mortiza. He has another great haircut. So the model that we're using before, we were using solar radiation precip and some soil characteristics. This is a process-based model where we're actually able to plug in some of the things that farmers are actually doing to get essentially a better handle on it. And what we're able to do is turn things on, turn things off, and come up with different scenarios. So I'll give you an example here. The blue is the actual measured yield from farmers' fields, and these are sorted according to rank. So the orange is the modelers trying to get to blue. Okay, so you can see at the lower parts, the model's not really getting to where it needs to be, but at the higher parts it is for barley. And we're seeing the opposite here with winter wheat, where, at the lower yields, the model's able to do it, but then it kind of goes off the rail. And that's the farmer effect, right? The interesting thing is here, the green line, I think it's green it's green. That's with nitrogen stress turned off. And the thing that kind of came screaming out of this is all of these growers here are people that use manure. So when nitrogen stress isn't part of the equation, then, they're showing up. So the manure is a dark horse with the N. That's what we're finding out. Okay, these are the varieties that we grew in 2023. Winter wheat for yield. Top 4 varieties are all winter wheat. We saw higher yields in the barley than the spring wheat this past year, and then spring wheat and oats. And then with protein, this is why Leonard McIsaac grows Walton and does it quite well. But these are all our protein crops. And then we're gradually seeing some of the pioneer varieties come in there too. Okay, so in 2024, we're going to do some greenhouse gas sampling, more as like a sentinel just to see what's going on. And we're just going to handpick those fields across the island. We're opening it up to 1 soybean field per grower for 2024. And our team's growing. We have Adam Foster. We included dawn measurements in the report this year. We hadn't done that before. Tandra Fraser is going to look at some of the soil microbiology with soybeans. We have a real problem with nodulation here, and so she's going to do a deep dive on that. Mortiza and Guillaume are going to play around with the model and try to figure out, what that farmer effect is. And then we're going to have an app this year. We're not going to release it to farmers just yet, but our coordinator is going to be entering the data. So that's going to minimize some of the transcription errors of getting it from the sheet of what they did to the computer so we can run stuff, which has been daunting. That's been a big part of it. So with no further ado, we're going to talk about the yields. Oats. Eric Terrio got gold at 1.8. Robert Culberson, silver, 1.7. 5.2. We're going down to the decimal places there. And Chris Toner at 1.7. And then really the interesting thing this year with this model, we found that a lot of the top 3 were both in percentage of potential and the actual yield. And I think it's no secret that CS Camden really worked well in New Brunswick this year. We didn't have any entries from Nova Scotia or PEI for oats. Okay. Spring wheat, we've got Troy Webster had the top yield with a non-Walton variety, and he's going to tell us how he did that. and then Leonard McIsaac on silver, and followed by Eric Terrio. And what we also do as part of this, we try to figure out very coarsely the amount of nitrogen required, or how many kgs of grain you can grow with kg of nitrogen, just to give us an idea of where we are on our nitrogen output. For the barley, we have Kyle at the top, 2.36, Eric Terrio 2.2, and Kevin Hunter. He's a new entrant to the N, and he scored bronze. The crazy thing is here, Kyle left nothing on the table. He scored 100% of his potential yield, and these are quite high numbers. These are higher than we've seen before. And the winter wheat, Kyle scored 3.66, and that's highest overall. So it's top of the N this year again. Nils got 3.2, and Pat Murray's a new entrant. He got 2.9. Okay, and again, somehow Kyle left 2% on the table with his percentage of potential. Nils hit 94, and Joey Van Driet from Nova Scotia hit 84%. Okay, and these are the soybean people. Anthony Neighbors, we have no idea how this happened. This is an amazing yield, and we're going to get John's going to come up and talk about it. Kyle placed second with 1.8 ton on the soybean, and Melvin had 1.6. And Daryl Wilkie, way up west, he got 100% of his potential calculated yield, which was awesome. Anthony got 97%, and Kyle Joel hit 85%. Okay, so we're going to bring these guys up.
Yeah, so our panel today of growers are going to share some of their knowledge and insights, and boy, three of them right at this table here. Kyle and Niall and Pat, if you guys could come up. Troy Webster. John Voss is coming up for Anthony, I think, if he's here. And Eric Terrio. Grab a seat, gentlemen. He's taller. Yeah.
Any particular order?
No particular order. Whoever's hiding behind there wants to be tall, but anyway. Yeah. So I hope you're all thinking of you got the information, think about your thoughts. Questions? Well, if you want, he's got mics in front of you to share. So what we'll do is, as we ask a question, we go down the panel, just introduce who you are and where you're from, and then go into your answer if you want. So I guess first question, what have you learned from Yen this year and previous years? Niles, you want to start first?
What did I learn from Yen this year compared to other years? Every year's a lot of big differences, I guess, because I basically did kind of the same as I did last year. Yield was a strong yield, but it wasn't like the field looked a lot better than it was. I mean, I'm happy with the yield, but the growing conditions this year just didn't have the potential of last year, so there's those variables. And I guess I need to figure out a little bit, how do I work with that a little bit from year to year.
Okay, thank you. Kyle?
It's hard to pick one thing. We're always changing, trying to get better. Probably for our farm, we playing with a little more starter fertilizer, trying to get that a little better to get things started. And same thing, just trying different things. This year, weather and environmental conditions, we had to kind of change our plan to accommodate the weather and debris left from previous crops.
Patrick?
I guess I'm new to Yen, but planting early was probably a big thing this year. UAN liquid fertilizer, it gives you a much better application of nitrogen, more uniform. fungicide. I think growth regulator would be a big thing for next year to try and keep it standing up.
I guess mostly what I've been seeing a lot when I kind of read the report a little bit is the nitrogen use efficiency. That was maybe one of the major things that I'm a little bit more proud of. I think in the trials that I've done, I didn't use maybe as much nitrogen as some of the others, and I think it has an effect on the bottom line, and that's where I like the new report, where you actually see, you know, what's the amount of kg that you're getting, you know, for the amount of nitrogen that you put. And that means a lot to me. I think, you know, everybody's looking to be better for the environment as well. It's nice to boost these crops, but you want to be, you know, somewhat better for the environment. One of the things that we've learned a lot with the oats is, and I'm saying this because we've got quite a bit of data to back it up there with the Atlantic Grains Council trials as well, is that the growth regulators are not working as good in oats, and that's the main reason why we're using the Camden is because it stands really well. So that's a really good variety to go with, just solely for the standability. So leave the other guys to talk.
Thanks, Eric. Troy?
Our farm has been into the end from the get-go, and it's a great program to be in, and it's something to look at what other people are doing with nitrogen applications and everything else, but it's another thing to talk to people in this room on the side and whatnot, and what are you really getting down to. What we're learning and continue to learn on our farm is the importance of timing of the nitrogen applications and your pesticide sprays and your growth regulator sprays. So we're really diving into trying to hit that bang on. And we're finding if we're off by a week or two, we're seeing negative results. So that's what we're looking at a lot of. I will take an opportunity to ask the group or challenge the group is, and this is a big one, and I don't mind saying it, is to look at your cost of production. Don't know how many in the room do. We do, and have this past year. And Neil and I are buddies, and I don't mind putting you on the spot. Do you have any idea what it costs to grow an acre of cereals? It's a scary number. So, you know, we're doing these things, but the next step is to be profitable, is to really look at that hard. You know, 1.8 ton to the acre at $300 an acre is not cutting it, paying the bills. So it's important to realize as well is to try to get the maximum yield with the less inputs, and we have to get the price of the product up as well. Thanks for that insert.
I'll work on that, Troy. Thank you. Go ahead, John. A little easier this time.
I don't know about that. Yeah, we've been in the end for quite a few years now, and one thing every year you kind of come to the awards and you look at what everybody else is doing, and you kind of take that home and you say, okay, we want to catch Kyle Jewell next year, so what do you do to get there? So, but Troy's 100% right. You got to maximize everything you can get out of it with your input costs. And it is scary. We've done some numbers this year, and it's like, holy gee, should we be doing that? But going forward, you don't have any choice. You carry on, but yeah, it's definitely a big thing to make sure you get everything on time and maximize what you can get out of every crop you put in. So it's a big job, but being on time is a major thing for sure.
Can I ask?
Yep. Was that granular?
Yes, it was, yeah. Yeah, 200 pounds per acre, I think, is right around where we were.
Any other questions from the floor before I go on to my next one?
That's a good question. That's kind of an Anthony question, but it's in a potato rotation. Like probably 90% of our soybeans go into potato ground. So it wouldn't be crazy high numbers, but I'd have to look into that and figure it out. But no, this field in particular is one we kind of love going to every time we get into it because it always produces big crop. Doesn't matter what we put in it. So it was the candidate for this yen this year. So, and yeah, it worked out good.
Is it follow-on potatoes?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, have you changed any of your best practices because of your experience with yen? Stuff you were doing previous to joining here?
Probably not a lot on soybeans. It's we started that sulfated potash blend, and then we pro-coat it with zinc. We've been doing that ever since I started working with Anthony. And some years it was, I guess at the start you never ever use fertilizer a whole lot, but once we started using it, it was one of those things we were putting around 130 pounds per acre, and then we jumped up to 200 on it, and it's paid back every year. It's yeah, we wouldn't plant beans with it, and at the end of the season, you're running low on fertilizer and stuff. We planted fields where we have been out of fertilizer in half the field, and it's not hard to tell. It's quite noticeable, especially in the combine. Like there is a big difference.
Troy, you're up.
What we've changed is adding more sulfur. Feeling fairly strong that we're seeing a positive result for sulfur at 20, 30, up to 40 pounds per acre. So that's something that specifically we've changed in the last couple of years with yen, noticing what the other guys are doing. Work a lot with Eric. I know he's in the room somewhere in here, and playing around with timing of modus. That was new for us this year. I actually went to doing 2 half applications instead of 1. I'm going to play around with that more before I'd ever recommend doing 2 versus just the 1 at the full rate. But I did the 2, trying to decrease the height and increase the nitrogen intake by the plant, so to speak. So that was new from this year.
Thank you. Oh,
I got a question for you.
Yes.
So did you go into that, because Scotia's quite a bit taller, right? So was that part of the plan?
Yes, it was part of the plan because of the Scotia. I just wanted to try it. I've grown Walton, and it's still a great cereal. Just wanted to try this Scotia, and talking to Eric, and we said, let's do, I don't know, it was 360 mil is a standard rate, so I did 200 mils, I believe, something like that. And it brought it down. It reduced the height. It didn't lodge. It was really good.
thanks, Eric.
Yes, on our side, I think what I need to take out of this is the use of the growth regulator is probably one of the major things that we've changed on our barley and wheat. I think it's well worth it, and I would strongly recommend for everybody that wants to boost the nitrogen levels to do it. It certainly works. Our application for the fungicide, we've put a little bit more fungicide than we used to, but we haven't changed it that much. I think the nitrogen and the growth regulator has a lot to do with some of those yields on the oats. We've used the preach for the fungicide, and it seems to be working really well for standability. So when I was mentioning that the growth regulator was not working 100% on the oats, the fact that we've been using the preach has actually helped a lot on that standability. So that's something that we've really taken out of those trials.
Patrick?
I guess going forward, probably going to try the growth regulator, use it on the barley and spring wheat, but may end up cutting back nitrogen slowly. May also try using more sulfur, like Joy says, sulfur and other micronutrients to try to boost the yields more and more.
Kyle?
For us going forward, I mean, every year is a little different. In our operation with the wheat, the straw goes into our ration for our dry cows, so us getting good quality straw is very essential. So wheat may carry a little more value to us than some people on the straw end of it. So And like everyone else, we're trying to do more with less, and timing, that's a big thing with these products. They work well, but getting them on the right time. So this past year, we've increased our spraying capacity, and we're currently working on a tender to keep that sprayer moving quicker so we can get, as everybody knows, it's timing and weather to get these applications done, and you're trying to look after 3 or 4 different crops at the same time. So that's the big one for us, is that one guy can look after that sprayer on his own. So that's kind of what we're working towards.
Niles?
So was the question was kind of have we changed since?
Yeah.
Joining-
What if your best practice, but you're a new entrant, so, what are you doing now with the N program that you weren't doing before?
Okay, yes, this is my second year. 3 years ago, I did nothing. Basically, we're a dairy farm, so we'd harvest soybean, and then we had to get rid of manure. So we put manure in the field. We would disc it all in, and it would take like a week to do it, right? And I'd be planting wheat middle to end of October, and then untreated seed because we were cheap, and next spring was we'd spray it and maybe put a fungicide in with a herbicide, and then 1 shot of nitrogen. That was that, and the yield was crap, and wheat sucked, but we got straw. That's what we wanted. And now what we do different, basically everything, right from we don't put manure on wheat at all anymore because it takes time. So we plant. We no-till right in as soon as the combine leaves. We plant an early variety of soybeans to get them off earlier. So we want to plant, and last week of September is the goal. If we can get September 20th, you need pretty early beans to do that, but we've been able to do that a few times. So doing that in the fall has been new for us. Getting planted earlier, that's made the biggest difference, is getting that stand established properly. And then in the spring, if you have the stand there, then it's easy just to carry through with the fungicides and split application nitrogen. That's made a lot of sense for us. So that's where we're at. We're happy where things are. We have good straw and good grain yields. Where we'll go from here is, I did use growth regulator this summer on that field, but looking back, I didn't have to. It stood fine. It was a short wheat. But we grew a lot of other acres I didn't put growth regulator on, that yielded about the same with no lodging. So this year, I think I threw my money away using a growth regulator. But next year, if it's a good growing year, maybe, I'll look at the conditions a little bit, when it comes time to put it on, decide then if it's worthwhile or not. I think you do need it. If the conditions are favorable for like a 3.5 ton plus yield, if you're going to push 4 ton, then I think you'll need it. But it's a little bit just monitoring the conditions and deciding off that.
Okay, thanks. Certainly, part of the best managed practices, everybody's always tweaking and trying to make things economical, plus get the best yield. With the increased number of varieties we have available to us all the time, have you or would you change your variety going forward to next year's yen?
Right now, my wheat's already planted. It's the same variety. But it seems in winter wheat, seems to be those pioneer varieties that are strong. If something new comes out that's doing well, we'll try other varieties. But I do usually like to plant the whole farm the same variety, so I can just order it all the same. I did actually this year. I do have a new variety because I don't know, we could only get so much of, what is it, R61. I can only get so much of that, so I had to buy a couple totes of whatever the new variety was. It's also a pioneer one, so we'll see how that does. And I guess maybe this year I'll do a yen on each one. I never thought of that, but maybe I'll do a yen on each variety, and then that might help me to make a decision of which one is a better yield and how they each respond. So yeah, we're always looking for new varieties. If something's coming up, we'll do it. We're not quick to change, but we keep our eyes open.
Thanks.
I guess it's hard to stray from what you know, but like every other thing in agriculture, genetics are evolving so quickly that you kind of have to be on top of things. So we're always open to the newest variety and kind of look on how that variety's responding in our growth or our area, and if it's available, then we're not afraid to change varieties or go with something new. But as I said, if there's something that works for you, it's hard to stray from it too.
I've always grown the pioneer variety and tried other varieties. They've yielded just as well, but they usually end up lodging or poor quality issues. But if there is other varieties that stand up to the pioneer variety, we'd be open to try them.
On the oats, I'm pretty satisfied with Camden, so I don't think I would change that. On the wheat, I may try something else. I think the Maurice, we have really good yields, but at the same time, the standability is always an issue, so I'd rather try to go with another variety and see if we can boost a little bit better and not get the lodging, even though we've used the growth regulator and it has worked pretty good. On the barley side, I think Hesma seems to be working really well, and it stands up really well, so I think it's good for those trials, so I wouldn't change that.
We're pretty much similar for this coming year. Got a new barley variety we're going to try. Combination of Walton and Scotia for the spring wheat. We're non-livestock growers, so we go for varieties that are short as possible because we're not looking for straw. So that's what we tend to go for.
Yeah, I guess for us, we actually have some winter wheat in this year. It's a different variety through semi-can. So we're going to give that a try and then see where that kind of leads to. But it looks pretty good. We done some plot work on it last fall, or this harvest past, and that variety yielded pretty decent in the plots. So yeah, we put it in good and early. It was probably in around 25th of September, so it looked good. So we'll kind of see where that goes.
Great.
You guys grew some Scotia too, though, right?
Yeah, we grew Scotia last spring wheat. Yeah.
And what do you grow for barley? And
We grow Legend and Ling. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Last question. Is there value in your operation participating in the N?
Oh, I think so. You kind of, it's good to see what other people are doing and what's working for them. Might not necessarily work for us, but it's good to see what everyone else is doing, and you kind of take that forward and see if you can boost your own crops by what other people are doing. But definitely a big thing for us the last few years is we've been running the stack program with Eric Richter there, and it's definitely been a big help to our place for sure.
Thanks.
We've enjoyed it as well. We were just talking at the table there before lunch, and you see all these other groups in different parts of the country in North America getting involved with these yens, and then when you're seeing the yields that they can put out, it's like, can this be achieved? And at first you say no, and then you say, well, you know what, maybe it can be achieved, or getting real close to it. So not only the yen of this part of Prince Edward Island, but when you compare it to other places that do this too. So it's very interesting, very interesting. We met, a couple of years ago, we met the leader from the guy that won in England. What was his name, Aaron? That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Actually, he won this past year.
Oh, he won again,
Yeah.
too? And they had a free couple hours one afternoon, and he came out. And we had a chat with him, and I told the story a little earlier, is that I asked him what varieties does he grow, and he couldn't even tell me, because he doesn't have them long enough to remember them. Has them for a couple of years, and they're moved on to a different one because it's beat by another breeder. I just thought that was really interesting. And then Frank and I were talking, and it's just like, we're running varieties 50 years old here.
Yeah.
And so that was just very interesting.
Thanks, Trey.
On our side, I really taint the yen program because I think we've improved a lot with the yen. It gave us the challenge to try different things, and because of that, we increased our yields quite a bit, and we're able to push it to different levels where we never thought we'd be able to get it there. So I think it's well worthwhile for everybody that really wants to participate, that you're gonna learn so much out of it. You're gonna learn from the peers. You're gonna boost those levels that you didn't think it would necessarily kind of work for you, but at the end you'll find the sweet spot where you know where you can push it and kind of be optimal for your efficiency. So I strongly recommend everybody that wants to participate. Just a quick question to Aaron, though. I was just wondering, on the data, what happens when there's drop-off on the like certain varieties, like we didn't harvest it, let's say for instance, when you put that under the 20% and 20%, does that, is that included or it's completely gone out of the equation?
So we had more guys walk away from their crop this year than we ever had just because of what happened to it. So if we get an estimated yield or we don't get a yield, we don't include that in any of the analysis.
Thanks.
It's my first year in Yen, but it's been a great learning experience to see what other growers are doing to push their yields higher and see what things you can take home to your own farm and push your yield even higher.
Yeah, well, we've been involved with Yen right from the start, and I really got my eyes open, like Troy said, when Mark Stubbs, or is it Mark Stubbs, came from the UK. That was kind of an eye-opener for me to see what they were able to achieve over there, and kind of got us thinking that why couldn't we get that here or close to it. So that year, that was the first year where he had talked about, we had switched we were losing the ammonium nitrate products, so he talked a lot when he was here about using UAN, so he was probably the push to get our operation. We kind of slowly worked with that, and now it's kind of become our main nitrogen source for our cereals and corn, so that's probably one of the things we benefit from, and the consistent learning from year to year and seeing where we can get our yields.
Yeah, we've just as well. We've also learned a lot from the NNR farm, but I don't think it's just having to participate in yourself to learn a lot, because the presentations that Aaron, what you've put together for everybody to see here, and what Dennis brings for these meetings, and everybody can come to it. It's just, I guess you need people to participate in the program, to collect the data, to put it together. You can't have 500 farms doing it. It gets, well, it'd be kind of great, but I mean, how do you manage that all, right? So just getting enough farms, getting enough site years and stuff put in there gives good information to everybody. As long as this Aaron and the rest of the team there keep putting these reports together for everybody to see, I think there's just great value for everybody to learn, because we don't have access to any secret information that nobody else does. We see our own reports, and that is nice, because I can take my information and say, oh, what am I lacking on? And I can see, the winner, oh, he was higher on this than I was, or whatever, right? And so that I can take home to my own farm. But I think the biggest thing is just having this program going on, so everybody can see it. Everybody sees what's happening.
Thanks very much. That's great. Well, it's super to see farmers learning from farmers, and any farmers out there sitting there today could say, I'd love to sit up there next year and pass on my knowledge. Well, maybe. Alan Miller, you got a question?
Take me more than 1 year to get up there, but
was-
maybe never. A couple of you or a few of you mentioned the importance of timings on your treatments, and I'm curious, one, how much you're self-taught on that, and how much you're getting advice from others, and who you're getting the advice from.
I think I one that.
Yeah, you had it on. Yeah.
I think I was the one that mentioned that. A little bit of my own experience and reaching out to every agronomist that we deal with, mostly people that I buy products off of and fertilizer. I'm asking them all the time, what was that flowering again? Okay, yeah, 25%, right. That type of thing, and then just a little bit of my own experience. That's where I make the decisions.
Any other questions? Well, if not, give everybody, Ryan Barrett.
Sorry to delay you. Given the growth in corn in the last number of years, is there any interest in expanding Yen to grain corn?
Yeah, we're working on a pilot. Dan McCackern's going to, we're going to do the same thing we did with soybeans this past year, and somebody else is going to follow up, for sure.
Any other questions? If not, we'll give a big round of applause to everybody. And if you gentlemen want to walk over that way, Heather has a presentation for you. Thanks. Good job.
Did I mention the cost of production?
Oh, by the way, if you increase your yields, your input costs go down.